This year's Georgia team is not last year's Georgia team. And I think we need to have a conversation about it because everybody wants to group 2022 and 2021 together and say, well, it's just Kirby on a roll now, Georgia being Georgia. Like, yes, the process is the same and the results are turning out to be the same so far and the coach is the same. But let me make this very clear. This Georgia team is very much so its own movie. It's not the sequel to the 2021 national title team. They are their own team, have their own identity. We need to kind of unpack that just a little bit and get on the same page here. First things first, it's literally different people. A lot of the main characters are the same because I mentioned you got Kirby Smart, you got Coach Monken calling the offense, and you got Stetson Bennett, like Brock Bowers. I understand that, but think about the identity of this team a season ago. Last year it was play really good defense, which they still do, and run the football. Well, guess what? 8 new starters on defense, only 3 guys returning from that squad, so a ton of them left to the NFL. And in terms of running the football, you have 2 different backs. Last year it was Amir White and James Cook. This year, Kenny McIntosh, Dejan Edwards. A grand total of 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns is what you lost a year ago. So you say, whoa, okay, I hear you, different personnel. Well, what have they done? Only allowing 11 points a game on defense. So they're still rock solid on that side of the ball, playing with elite team speed, physicality, playing still that continued Georgia standard, Georgia brand of football, running the rock over 200 yards a game. Dejan Edwards and Kenny McIntosh have been some dogs. Kenny McIntosh coming continually into his own from that Kentucky game when they needed to play a little bit of a muddy game, ran for 143 yards. So it's different personnel, absolutely. But they're able to still get that same result. But I think we need to mention it's different characters when you talk about this Georgia team. Really quick, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we would love to have you along for the ride. We've had upwards of 1,000 Georgia subscribers in the last 2 weeks alone. We thank you for that. And if you haven't joined us yet, jump on in. The water's fine. Also, follow me on the social channels at JD Piquel on Twitter and Instagram. Let's talk about the style this team is playing with. Because last year's team was very much so a blue-collar operation, and they ran the football and played great defense like we already mentioned. Last year, Stetson Bennett averaged right around low 20s in terms of pass attempts for a game. I think he was at like 23. This year, they're at 34. Right now, Stetson Bennett thrown for over 3,000 yards already with another game left in the regular season. The entire year last year, threw for 2,800 yards. So they're making a little bit more of an effort to hurt you offensively. They're making more of an effort to balance out what they can do throwing the football. Guys like Ladd McConkey elevated their game. Brock Bowers somehow elevated his game from a season ago. That's important to mention. But last year's team, they really only had to fight with one style. And you know what I'm talking about. The defense pretty early on would just pin the opposition, and they'd wait for the offense to, pretty much bury you. Like, that was how it went. They won games, I don't want to say in spite of Stetson Bennett, but they didn't ask too much of Stetson Bennett a season ago. Low 20 pass attempts. Stetson Bennett is now, along with this offense, becoming the aggressor for this Georgia football team. So we talk about style. Like, they would just pin you, bury you. That's great. This Georgia football team, we've seen on multiple occasions, fight different kinds of styles in different games. They would wrestle you, the Kentucky game. Ground control, it's cold, it's November, you got to go tackle Chris Rodriguez, 16-6. We can play that way. We can win that style of fight. Say, okay, well, you got to go a full 4 quarters. It's a boxing match. You got to throw a knockout round late. That's fine. We'll do that against Florida. We'll score 40-plus points, and we'll push, and we'll pull away at the end of the game. That's what we'll do in the second half. Throw knockouts. Okay, well, you need to throw an early knockout. We need you to throw a one-punch haymaker. Game 1 against Oregon. We've seen them now fight in different styles, and that makes them dangerous. Like we've already said on this program before, who would you rather fight? The guy who's never been tested, who's undefeated? Or would you rather fight the guy who's taken a couple punches, tasted their own blood, but still hasn't lost a match? Can fight whatever kind of fight you want to fight. Wrestle, jiu-jitsu, MMA, boxing, whatever you want to do. Which guy do you want to fight? And I promise you it's not the tested one. And that's what Georgia is right now. And I don't think that gets enough credit. The difference between this Georgia team and last year's Georgia team, and Kirby Smart said it, players on that team have said it, They have developed a response mechanism, a response muscle that last year's team, not they didn't have it, they just never had to show it. They never really got tested. I know the Alabama game is maybe the only example of them, getting tested, having taken a punch, but this year's team has done it in multiple games. The Missouri game, you're down on the road. The Kentucky game, like we already said, it's physical, it's ground control, it's cold, it's on the road. We've seen them be pushed around and push right back and finish the deal. And for them to have built up that kind of resilience, to have been in a real fight before they get to January, I think that's a scary thought for the rest of the college football landscape. So Georgia, a different program in the characters they got on their team, in the kind of fights that they've been able to win, and the fact that they've developed that response mechanism, it's scary. I'll just say that. It's going to be scary for whoever draws them in the college football playoff. I'm JD Pickell. This has been The Hard Count. We appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't yet joined the party, subscribe. We'd love to have you. Jack Terry doing the real heavy lifting, but this is your show. This is your operation. We're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.